A reading from the book of Hebrews chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. For every high priest chosen from among men is appointed to act on behalf of men in relation to God, to offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. He can deal gently with the ignorant and wayward, since he himself is beset with weakness. Because of this, he is obligated to offer sacrifice for his own sins, just as he does for those of the people. And no one takes this honour for himself, but only when called by God, just as Aaron was. So also Christ did not exalt himself to be made a high priest, but was appointed by him who said to him, "Today you are my son, today I have begotten you." As he says also in another place, "You are a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek." In the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverence. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered, and, being made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him, being designated by God a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. This reading, of course, begs the question, who is Melchizedek? Why is the author here so keen to make sure that we understand that Jesus is a priest of the order of Melchizedek? Well, the priests that we have in New Testament times is the same as the priests in the Old Testaments. Well, they come from the line of Aaron. They are Levites. They're from that family. And they offer their sacrifices in the temple and before that in the tabernacle, and they do it again and again and again. And as the author here is showing us, they also make sacrifice for their own sins. But there is another priest who comes not from that line in the Old Testament, and that is this Melchizedek. And he appears in the early chapters of Genesis, when he appears to Abraham. And the interesting thing about him is that he doesn't have a genealogy, he just appears in the text. And if we know anything about Genesis, we know of the list that so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so on and so forth. And so lineage is very important in the book of Genesis, but Melchizedek just appears from nowhere. It would appear that he is coming from, well, who knows where. And this intrigued the Jews, and this no doubt intrigued the author to the Hebrews as well, because here is a figure who predates all of that. And more of that, think about it, because Abraham is involved, and because Abraham sought a blessing from Melchizedek and then gave a tithe to Melchizedek, well, that shows that Melchizedek is the greater than Abraham. And Abraham is the father of the entire Jewish race, and all of those priests as well. So it is that Abraham, when he seeks a blessing from Melchizedek, is also representing all of that priestly line that would flow from him. And Melchizedek is also an interesting name. It means King of Righteousness. And we know he's, from the text, he's the King of Salem. And Salem, of course, is associated with Jerusalem. So we have this figure, this shadowy figure who just appears as if he was always there. And the author of the book of Hebrews is saying that Jesus is from this line. It's a greater line than all those priests of the tribe of Levi, a greater line than all those who descended from Abraham. No, Jesus comes from the order of Melchizedek. And that's also handy for another reason, because Jesus actually isn't from the right priestly tribe. He's from Judah. Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. He's a descendant from King David. So how can Jesus be both king and high priest? Because those two people came from different tribes. Because his priesthood isn't from the tribe of Levi, but rather is of the order of Melchizedek, an order of priesthood higher than all those others. So the author to the book of Hebrews here is trying to demonstrate to us that all that we need to know about Jesus is actually there contained in the Old Testament and in a great part in the book of Genesis himself. Jesus doesn't just come along as a great teacher and a great leader. Jesus is somebody who was foreseen from the beginning, whose very functions were echoed and pre-enacted by all of the Old Testament. He is from of old, he is from ever, he is the Son of God. And so when we see what the author to the book of Hebrews is doing there, we also need to expand our understanding of Christ and place him in his cosmic place.